Hello everybody, I'm Indy. Today I'm going to the meeting where the MEP and members of societies, Belarus, Lithuania and other countries will discuss about threats and risk from Belarus, where they're building nuclear power station 20 kilometers from the border of European Union and as well 40 kilometers from capital of Lithuania. We call it the most dangerous nuclear power station in the world. And we will see what we can do. See you later.
The topic is very relevant, very debatable. I put 4 questions ahead of me. So the first question is, as Rebecca Harms reminded to us, that 34 years ago there was a nuclear accident in Chernobyl, and the 50,000 people who lived in Chernobyl back then are no longer living there. We have a dead city. And at the moment we have a situation that the issue is very pertinent to us. I'm very happy that we have members of the Parliament, of the European Parliament here with us to speak on this issue. We were very uniform in adopting a law yesterday. It was adopted by absolute majority. Petras Ostrovets said, we never sold the problem to Europe. We're trying to sell it in Rome, we're trying to sell it in Warsaw. Some people bought it, some didn't. Some people thought this is a European issue, a European problem, others not. This is a European problem, a long-standing project. I would like to thank each and every one of you who is concerned about the future of our country. Thank you very much, and I wish you good work. Let me start from Rebecca Harms, and we are organizing a more interactive session. We're not going to speak in long monologues. We'll try to engage the audience, you, and Mrs. Harms. I want to ask you, some few weeks ago there was a plan to go to Minsk, to Belarus, and to see what is happening in Ostrovets, but this trip never saw the light. Some people say that the MEPs didn't want to go there, others say that the Belarusians didn't want to let you in. What was the real situation?
So honestly, I can tell you that my colleagues, we really wanted to visit Ostrovets, and we really wanted to meet legislators and the authorities in Minsk to get better insight in what is going on in Ostrovets. And for me, I can tell you it was quite disappointing when I met the ambassador from Minsk to Brussels in my office, and he explained to me that in Minsk they would prefer to receive an official mission. So 4 members of the European Parliament interested in traveling to Minsk and interested in visiting Ostrovets nuclear power plant under construction is not seen as official enough in Minsk.
Perceived as not officials.
So this was the reason he explained to me, he said, so literally, that they would prefer to have an official visit. Having said that, I would like to make clear that me and my colleagues would go at any moment. The authorities in Minsk are ready to receive us. We made this also very clear in a friendly way to the ambassador that so this is not our last try. I definitely would like to go to Ostrovets nuclear power plant before in June we will have the ESPO convention meeting in Minsk. I saw personally this planned visit, this scheduled visit. I saw it as also a preparation to the ESPO convention meeting in June.
Speaker of our parliament mentioned that we didn't solve the problem to Europe. Do you agree?
It is not always easy to sell problems which you have in the neighborhood of the European Union, which is quite huge nowadays. It's not always easy to sell your problems in a region to the center of the European Union. But I must say that what I observe in Lithuania since more than a year, but especially during the last months, is quite unexceptional. So, for example, that you have meanwhile a special ambassador on the Ostrovets problems. So I work on nuclear issues as an anti-nuclear politician since 40 years, more than 40 years. I think I have never seen a government who decided to have a special envoy on a nuclear power plant in the neighborhood. This shows a very special engagement, and I would say also the decision of yesterday in Seimas to now really push Lithuania and the Baltics out of the eastern grid and to prepare to disconnect from Russian electricity supply. So this is a strong signal to the center of the European Union, and I can promise you this will be taken very serious by the Commission and all those who are working on the so-called winter energy package in the European Parliament and in the European Commission.
We are doing a lot, but what we can do more? What do you think about that?
So don't forget that all debates and all activities against nuclear power plants have been very, very long-lasting and so difficult. So the goals of anti-nuclear movement, anti-nuclear parties, also like the Green Party, they were not easy to achieve. In my own country, Germany, we needed twice the experience with worst case of a nuclear power plant. First, Chernobyl and then Fukushima to finally and definitely decide to phase out nuclear power. We decided this for our own territory. So to get impact on activities outside of your country is always more difficult. I can tell you many stories about how Austria is trying to get impact on the Czech Republic activities. I can tell you what people are trying to get impact on nuclear power plants like Chernobyl or Bulgaria. Projects is quite demanding, so don't stop the activities. It will be a tough fight, but I think with yesterday's decision you paved a better way to be taken very serious in this fight.
Thank you for getting here at this event, for your participation. I would like to express the opinion of the European Parliament's Greens group and the Lithuanian Greens, the Peasants' Party. The opinion is that there are no safe nuclear power plants in the world. Some are safer, some are less safe for different reasons mentioned by the colleagues, but unfortunately the EU has not yet eliminated all nuclear power plants projects, and nevertheless the EU has said that a year ago that EU funds shall not be used for the projects of nuclear power plants, and the decommissioning process could not be state-funded. That is, the power plant has to accumulate the funds to solve all possible problems. Unfortunately, we know very well that Lithuania didn't fulfill that request. Is being built on the Schengen border, on the EU and NATO border. This is not the border between Belarus and Lithuania, and that's about it. No, we have to move to a higher level from bilateral relationships to the international relationships, and we have to organize as many meetings of this kind as possible, and first of all in Brussels. Let's remember the power plants in Austria, Germany and so on. They were not decommissioned because of bureaucratic decisions. The public made the bureaucrats to make these decisions. In other words, the origins of political decisions are people. And those Lithuanians who are so happy to be shopping in Belarus one day will start demonstrations at Ostrovets.
First of all, thank you for welcoming me. It's also for me a pleasure to meet the Lithuanians everywhere where I go, and I find it also very very impressive how much Lithuania is engaged in Ukrainian interest. And having said that, I would like to underline that I'm also working on the risks of nuclear power plant Rivne in Ukraine, because in Rivne they are so Ukrainians want to get so an easy going permit for lifetime extension, and I see this Ukrainian project also as quite a risk for the whole of the region. So on this we can cooperate, Ostrovets and Rivne, and their specific risks. And so how to do the disconnection, how to do the integration in the EU grid or European grid. I saw that there is since long the debate on how to do it best, whether we need a new connector, a new link in between Poland on a new line, or whether we can do it on the old line and by extension of the existing link. So I think the most important issue now is to decide fast. And not to postpone all these decisions, and the better the Baltic-Polish common position, the stronger the common position on this is, the better. But from my side, for example, so the faster, the better, and my support for this idea is...
Leonas Kerasierius, Vilnius Liberation Movement Chair. Thank you very much, Excellencies, for coming here, but it's a pity that we came here too late. When Mr. Shushkevich said that when he was visiting Lithuania, that the Belarusian nuclear power plant is the destruction or annihilation object for Lithuania, and we all knew that it is dangerous, and then we had to raise this issue. Not now. Let's start from ourselves. Professor Landsbergis, I remember on the 16th of February, said, when he was speaking from the balcony, "Dear Lithuanians, let's get together when, like in the road, the Baltic Road, we did. Let's come to Ostrovets, let's get together, 1 million of people. Dear MEPs, we are tired of waiting. Read the decisions of Vilnius Liberation Movement. We officially declared that Lithuania is deemed to be annihilated during the nuclear catastrophe. Look what people are saying. People are scared. When will be living in peace?" And when addressing you, MEPs, once again, I just would like to reiterate the words of the most honorable citizen of the Republic of Lithuania, Vytautas Landsbergis. Let's get together like we did in the road of on the Baltic Road. The Ostrovets nuclear power plant has to be closed. The project has to be closed, and all the money that is foreseen for this project, let us invest into the closure of Ostrovets. I haven't concluded yet. Please don't interrupt me. And we need to really invest into the welfare of Ostrovets. All this money that is meant for this project. We're saying that Russia is building the nuclear power plant, but the Lithuanian companies are part, as they are acting as contractors, subcontractors. We are feeding our people. We can hardly feed them.
Because 1 year ago, I visited Chernobyl nuclear power plant together with a big mission with all OSCE ambassadors and many diplomats. We visited the shelter. Yeah? We should get an impression on this a huge construction to finally cover what was Block 4 in Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The day before, we all participated in a conference of the crème de la crème, the very elite of nuclear scientists, nuclear watchdogs from all over the world in Kiev Polytechnical University. And the outcome of this university conference and the prologue for the visit at the site of the shelter construction in Chernobyl. So the message before the visit was, we will always see nuclear catastrophes as long as we are running nuclear power plants. This message had been conveyed through the whole day of the conference by the Chinese expert, the United States expert, the European Union's experts. Everybody agreed, as long as we will have nuclear power plants, we will see major catastrophes. Now let's go to Chernobyl and to see how we can learn to control the impact of nuclear catastrophes. So I tell you this because it's the year 31 now after or with Chernobyl nuclear accident. They are in Chernobyl, far away from having the situation under control. The second shelter costs billions, and it's not yet sealed. Nobody knows what to do after the shelter will have been sealed, maybe during this year. So is it really worth to continue this high-risk technology when everybody agrees among the experts, as long as you do it, you will see major catastrophes? I think since we have alternatives, let's decide to go for the alternatives and not to make kind of selective approach. If the nuclear power plant is constructed by Russians, we are against. If it's constructed by TEPCO from Japan or by Westinghouse, then it's okay. I think it's a selective approach which will not help, and I strongly recommend the Lithuanians to also close all the plans for Visaginas, to forget about nuclear, to fight against Ostrovets, and to invest in a reasonable, sustainable energy strategy for the Baltics in the European grid. Thank you.
I would like to start with this part of the audience. Professor, you have been silent for so long. Can you say something about that? There is a possibility that Ostrovets is not going to be built. It's not that strong, but it's for different reasons that we have been listing. Belarusians themselves are now realize that they have now got tangled into that project. We also wanted to get tangled into that nuclear power plant project. And our kilowatt hour would have cost as many as 10 euro cents, while this winter we had the kilowatt hour for 3 euro cents. And it's the same situation with Belarus. People know the economic parameters. It's the minimum of 6 euro cents per kilowatt hour that they have estimated. If the costs of the construction projects are not going to exceed the existing ones, and we know that nobody in Europe or in Russia is able to build such a project within the budget provided for in the contract. Westinghouse is going bankrupt, you know, so the construction project costs at least a double amount of what is being provided for in the contract. The Japanese company Toshiba was building a nuclear plant, and Russia is building an equivalent reactor in St. Petersburg with a delay of minimum 2 or 3 years and exceeding all the costs. I think that it's not possible to build, to construct such a project within the planned deadline. The parliamentarians should not be very much disappointed for not being able to go to Ostrovets. There's nothing to see. It has only some concrete so far, and the construction has just started. As regards the price, we have to declare very loud that we are not going to let it in. They cannot hope to sell it at that price. For the coming 5 years, our electricity is going to cost 3 to 4 cents, not more. So I think that the Belarusians understand very well that they have now tangled and stuck in this project, and they have no way out. They are not now going to build the houses that are going to use only electricity for everything. This is their way out. Then the European Commission supports Hungary and the Czech Republic. In the UK, there is an absurd price, 11 cents per kilowatt hour, and the EU has supported that. So I don't think that we are going to get much from the EU, much support. Of course, the biggest failing factor might be the failure to build it in due time, and it may have the fate of the 40 incompleted nuclear power plants. Thank you.
We are observing from a non-formal level, and I see one thing, and this is my personal opinion only. We are making one methodological mistake. We know that Belarus is a very a country that is adversarial to us. That's why we are opposing the construction. But we're not saying that publicly. We're saying that the administrative staff is not good, they're lacking documents, the walls are high or low. They will provide you all the documents sooner or later, forged or not. They will provide all the documents, and we will have nothing to say. We will say that everything was correct, and what can we do? They submitted everything. I do understand that the government, the Ministry of Economy cannot do anything else but to work. They are not really happy about the technical things. The main tool that could stop us Ostrovets is intimidating or frightening Europe that this is second Chernobyl. Well, Europe has to be afraid, like they were afraid of Ignalina. Let's be open. Talking about technicalities, yes, we need. Let's calculate the density of people, let's look at that, but the final decision, when Brussels will start being afraid that this could be second Chernobyl, then we could stop something.
Now I'd like to introduce our neighbors, our friends from Belarus, Tatiana Novikova, who is the coordinator of the anti-nuclear movement in Belarus, Nikolai Ulasevich, who is the local resident of Ostrovets, and Irina Sukhi, who is a member of the board of NGO EcoHome in Belarus. You will specify more information about your organization. Can I ask the resident from Ostrovets, Mr. Nikolai, when we turn on the Russian television, we can hear that many people, the most people in Belarus, support the Ostrovets project and Mr. Lukashenko and his actions. What do you really think? Your community, your village, are you happy about having the nuclear power plant at the site in the near future, or not really? Of course, I am unhappy because I am a resident at the Ostrovets region and I live 4 to 5 kilometers away from that nuclear power plant, and from my own yard I can see what is going on in at the near distance, and many things like that. If we take into consideration the social composition of the Ostrovets region, mostly these are elderly people, the collective farmers, and they are indifferent. In relation to the working population, these are officers, officials, the customs officers, and so on. So they are actually contracted. And then the other part of people are contracted people, so they can't decide anything. There are many and often conversations among people happening, and I know that most people are against this project. But unfortunately, the opinion of the majority does not matter in Belarus, because we do not have any election, and the government doesn't care about the public opinion. And this is the opinion of the monopolist. But most people, the majority of the population, are against this project. Thank you very much. Ms. Tatiana, I would like to ask you, you are the manager of the anti-nuclear movement in Belarus, and what kind of organization is that, and what is your position on the prospects of the Ostrovets nuclear power plant? Hello? This is not an organization. This is a movement. This is an anti-nuclear campaign, and I am not the manager. I am a technical person helping this movement, and I've been doing that for 9 years. I don't want to speak on behalf of our expert community. Our company, our campaign was the only one observing the construction on site from the expert point of view. We were the first ones to organize the expert examination in Belarus, and we are still inviting Canadian, US nuclear energy experts in order to carry out professional examinations and evaluations. These are not my personal and subjective evaluations or somebody from Belarus. These are independent evaluations which coincide with what was said by our colleagues from Lithuania. The thing is that today the project has serious problems which cannot be overcome or corrected. It has huge technical problems and which cannot be resolved in that nuclear power plant, and it cannot be made less dangerous. I will explain to you. First of all, the selection of the site, the recommendations of the specialist group were the following, that when there is a populated area, the nuclear power plants cannot be built within the radius of 50 kilometers. You say 100 kilometers. Well, this cannot be corrected. Vilnius cannot be moved further. Of course, in relation to the construction faults, you can of course paint the cracks in the facade, but in any case this building is going to collapse. You cannot correct it. The site has been selected, the violations, the safety requirements were violated. This cannot be corrected. The Voronezh nuclear power plant was launched and last summer, while in the autumn the generator came to a halt because of a fault. Well, this cannot be relaunched. It was very dangerous, but safety measures were applied, and the catastrophe was avoided. Another thing is that they started building the nuclear power plant without the architectural project design. And after that, when the construction process was started, only then did they draft the project. Actually, the concrete, the make of the concrete was the wrong one. Can we correct that? No. Last December, the corpus of the unit was damaged during transportation. Can this be corrected? No. We received an official reply that the unit was not examined in the manufacturing conditions. That is, it was constructed the way it was. So while the unit is being operated, it may be get damaged, and the unit may have concealed defects, which can actually come into light tomorrow or in 10 years' time, and nothing can be done with that. That is, if thematic violations have been made, this is very serious. These are very important factors. So actually they first of all chose the site, only then after they examined whether it was appropriate for that. We have to get rid of this illusion that we can correct the project. We can only stop the construction. Why was the construction of Voronezh nuclear power plant frozen? Because the contractor saw that this was not cost effective. And the conference of ESPO is going to take place in June, and I would like to draw attention to the fact that Minsk is using the mechanisms of international conventions for the legalization of their own projects. They are showing off that everything is in order because there is a mission of MGT taking place. But they are manipulating the information and they are pressurizing the public. And when ESPO conference will take place in Minsk, there will be many protests, but we may be arrested, and many things can happen to us while leaving the home, while going on the street, and in such conditions it's very difficult for us to conduct a dialogue. Lithuania, please make all possible influence to stop Belarus building this project. The government has to come to the negotiating table. Thank you very much.
Well, I think that something might be done because the power plant has not been fully completed, and it's easy and it's cheaper not to complete it because this is going to be much more efficient for the neighbors and also for us, the Belarusians. It's very difficult to influence this decision within the country. All our attempts are quite limited, and when we try to influence people, we are pressured, and also we are prevented from talking to the public. And in 2006, I remember that we said, let's organize public discussions, and nobody actually took any of our observations into consideration. Then we tried to do our best and to use all the international mechanisms, and they didn't stop the construction. But Belarusian society is quite sensitive towards this issue, and the European opinion, because it wants to look well in the face of international conventions, and together with the European colleagues, we filed complaints because some conventions were violated. But such mechanisms are quite soft. They are soft measures. Of course, the legislation improved with regard to how the projects are being considered and how the projects are being discussed in the public. No such recommendations existed. For example, we would like a recommendation to rediscuss such a construction, to reconsider it. But at the same time, ESPO Convention that we talked a lot about where the process has not been completed and the ability to influence the construction in general is very important to us. Once again, one can only say what has been said. If the European Union gets involved, this would influence more the government of our state. I think I've said everything I wanted to say. Of course, if we thought about some innovative tool, so the Belarusians could realize and perceive what we know, because we have a very limited audience and we cannot reach our listeners or viewers. The brainwashing is very prevalent in Belarus. And independent TV, remember, was stopping people on the streets of Minsk. What do you think about this nuclear power plant? People were saying, oh, well, really, we are against, but we can't really get electricity without it. But we don't have any nuclear power plant now, and nobody is suffering. We have the electricity. So influencing the public opinion of Belarus is difficult. I would like to comment the cost. We just made calculations of 1 kilowatt hour, and our calculations are that it's going to be more than 20 euro cents per kilowatt hour. At the moment, the electricity, it's going to, according to our measurement, it's going to be the most expensive electricity in the region. Well, some people said that the Belarusians do understand the situation. I could say that no. The Belarusian state system is being disinformed. That means that civil servants are focused on taking as much money as possible from the budget. And the ministries are trying to take it as much as possible from it. That's why you need to disinform and brainwash the society. That's why the lobbyists are talking about the fact that nuclear power nuclear power plants are cost efficient. We talk with civil servants and people believe in that. When they have no arguments, they say, we believe, we have a trust in this nuclear power plant. And we have exhausted all our efforts, and you work as specialists, and you could explain the situation to them and tell them that you are partners. You want to tell them the cost, the real cost of the project. And this is very important. Thank you very much.
My last question, very brief question. How to put in the head of Angela Merkel, in the head of Donald Tusk, the question of Ostrovets? How to make that they will wake up in the morning and they will go to bed with the question of Belarus land.
So I do not know whether we will achieve that they think about Ostrovets from the morning to the night, from the night to the morning. We will see. But I think it all starts with Ignalina. And it was good that we covered this experience today in our discussion. There were good reasons to close Ignalina together with 2 other nuclear power plants in Central European countries. I don't go to the details, but I remember myself when I discovered the design, so the lack of real containment and the nuclear fuel stored on site without containment. So the risk situation in Ignalina and some other nuclear power plants was awful, and from my point of view, for Ignalina and for Lithuania, for the Baltics, it probably was very good that at an early stage it was decided to phase out Ignalina together with 2 other Eastern European plants. This was done because of the risk assessment. German government is right now in a kind of friendly battle with French government and government from Belgium. Because close to our borders, we have discovered tremendous risks in nuclear power plants in France and in Belgium. So in Belgium, for example, thousands of flaws discovered in the steel of reactor steam vessels of Tihange and Dole. In Fessenheim, not a Belgium but a French nuclear power plant, we have sometimes every month a severe incident. Yeah? So it's really high risk, very old nuclear power plant. And it's very complicated to get them off the grid, as the Germans try whatsoever. So far they fail. For Ostrovets, it's quite the same situation, the risks you will face in the future and Europeans will face in the future. And as I understand our discussion of today, it's much easier to stop it now than later. And so if there is a lesson to be taken to the Germans and others who left nuclear industry years ago, it's better not to allow Ostrovets to go to the grid and to stop it now than to try later. And again, I repeat what I said earlier today, it's a very good decision by the Lithuanians to declare that they are not ready to buy high-risk electricity from Belarusian plants. It's really very impressive for me that the discussion took place yesterday in the Seimas. It will help to convince the Germans, probably, but it will help more if you include in your decision-making process also the goodbye to the Sigmas. So be consistent, don't discuss on the nuclear options if you want to be successful against Ostrovets. And you can count on me. I have some experience in the East with nuclear and we will continue our fight together. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for the attention and special thanks for our heroes in this fight from Belarus, because we know, especially since the protests some weeks ago, that what you are doing is really a very, very dangerous involvement in something which for us is completely normal. Thank you for joining and see you next time, hopefully in Minsk.